Well, thank you for joining part 2 of my video blog for this great vintage concert poster. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, you should definitely hop over. This is, of course, PosterCentral.com's video blog, and I'm Pete Howard. So down the right-hand side here, in really fun alternating colors, and you've got again those words, Merseyside's top 4 groups. Well, the top one there is Gerry and the Pacemakers, and they certainly need no introduction at all. In just a year's time, they would have 3 #1 national hits in Britain, pretty much mirroring the Beatles' success on the charts for 1963 only. One of those was How Do You Do It, which the Beatles had recorded in September of this year, 5 months after this concert, but subsequently forbade George Martin from releasing it because they only wanted to release their own material. After Gerry and the Pacemakers, you've got Howie, Casey, and the Seniors. And Howie was a very highly regarded saxophonist on the Liverpool scene. And interestingly, he and they actually found some measures of success before the Beatles did in a couple of key areas. As Derry and the Seniors, their previous name after one of the group's lead singers, they had become the first Liverpool band to play in Hamburg. Yeah. And then later they were the first Liverpool rock group to have a single and album recorded and released in Britain. But alas, that did not lead to success, and so they broke up actually not long after this show in mid-1962. But check out Howie's history. In the 1970s, post-Beatles, Howie played on Paul McCartney's Band on the Run album, including the title track and the song Jet, and a couple of other Wings albums, and then he joined McCartney in the mid-1970s for the huge Wings Over the World tour. And Howie Casey also recorded with and toured with The Who. Boy, it's just remarkable how much Beatles history and connections are interwoven into such a big, neat, complex Liverpool concert poster like this. It's just fun discovering these facts one after the other. And then, well, don't even get me started on Rory, Starr and the Hurricanes, right? Formerly Liverpool's #1 rock group, they of course were famously billed above the Beatles just 18 months ago on the Beatles' first trip to Hamburg. A very familiar image to Beatles fans, and yes, I've had the pleasure and honor of video blogging this exact poster before. Rory, Starr and the Hurricanes were now, of course, totally eclipsed by the Beatles by the spring of 1962, but they did feature, as you know, drummer Ringo Starr, who later would become a Beatle. Wow. And then, lastly of the 4, you've got the Big 3, who evolved into that group from Cass and the Casanovas. And they featured lead guitarist Adrian Barber. Now, you ready for this? He eventually emigrated to the US, went to work for Atlantic Records, and produced the Allman Brothers Band debut LP in 1969. Wow, that's pretty remarkable. You wouldn't expect, Southern rock, great first album from this poster, but that connection is there. Beatles manager Brian Epstein had signed the Big 3 and sent them to Hamburg this August, in between Beatles residencies, and he got them signed to Decca Records, resulting in one top 40 hit the following year. How about this? Some Other Guy. That was their top 40 hit. Oh, endless Beatles connections abound. And then finally, you've got the original King Twisters, about which I know zero, you'll be glad to hear. But I have a feeling they were pretty much simply go-go dancers. Okay, now down to the matter of the business. At the bottom of the poster, on the lower left, you've got licensed bars, late transport all areas, Liverpool, and Whirl. Boy, it's really nice to see Liverpool spelled out on this concert poster. You just don't see the word Liverpool very often on original Beatles advertising posters. They just didn't have to say it. Then it says, excursions, I'll come in a little bit closer, excursions leaving St. John's Lane, Lime Street, 7:30 through 8:30 to get people over in time to see most of the show. Even a simple touch like using 3 different colors for those 5 lines just really adds a nice artistic touch to the poster. And then finally that white box down on the lower right, Tickets, 6 shillings from, and then 5 locations are given, which I very much have covered in other Beatle concert poster blogs. But it does include NEMS, Brian Epstein's famous record store in Liverpool. So tied into that, the ticket locations, I want to point out that a handbill was made for this exact show, and let's take a look at that. Here's an image of the handbill that's way blown up so you can see it easy. The real size is something like 5 by 8 inches. Red, white, and blue flyer with none of the poster's graphics on there at all. Strictly an informational flyer, although it does have that cute little, cartoon musicians row along the bottom. Every word on here is identical to the poster with one exception. The 5 ticket locations are missing. So, I'm kind of theorizing handbills and flyers were left on counters all over the city and the area, if the distributor was doing his job right, and probably some businesses were a little bit loath to give away flyers on their counter that, directed people, their customers, to other locations by naming the stores to spend their money elsewhere. So, it's easier just to leave the names of the businesses off, and hopefully everybody carried the handbill. But that is, granted, just an informed theory. So, in conclusion, as I, wind down this 2-part video blog for this wonderful poster, I mentioned early on in part 1 that this was on very thin paper stock. Well, the British call this, it's got several names, wheat paste, fly paper, sometimes snipe. These were not usually thumbtacked up to walls and stuff. These were made to be adhered to flat surfaces with like glue or paste that's brushed on. Now, they're really probably most common at construction sites on both sides of the pond. Everybody's seen them, right? At construction sites, you got multiple copies side by side, which is real attention grabbing. For best visual impact, sometimes there's 6 or 8 or 12 of them lined up. It's really impactful. But, if space was limited, just one would do fine. In fact, take a look at this. Here's a vintage photograph from London of a worker applying wheat paste concert posters. Wow. He's in overalls, of course. There's a bucket of watery paste down there in the lower right. And you can see there's posters up there by the Yardbirds, the Graham Bond Organization, and Chris Farlow, among others. So, this is what the posters look like when they're brand new and fresh, right? First being put up. Well, I've got a picture on the other side of some when they're old and outdated. I gotta warn you though, you better hang on to your hat, okay? You ready for this? OMG, a couple of Beatles ones from 1962. One of these is from before the Night to Remember concert, and one is from after. Jeez, what an intense photo, because to the best of my knowledge, and collectors worldwide, no surviving examples have ever been seen of these posters by collectors. Well, on the left you've got March 24th, 1962, the Heswall Jazz Club, and on the right, June 9th of 1962 at the Hallowed Cavern Club. How do you like that cute megaphone cartoon logo? And that was right after the Beatles' first visit ever to Abbey Road Studios to audition for George Martin. Wow, knock me over with a feather, jeez. Now notice how people in this picture, presumably fans, but maybe just cleanup people, have tried to peel them off, but with no success. Boy, knowing what we know now, he should have taken a saw and just cut out a piece of the fence, right? Oh man. Wow, a night to remember, and what a poster to remember. My goodness, such a creative and colorful design, and so much Beatles history running through it everywhere you turn. Thanks a lot for dropping by. It's been great fun. Have a nice day, and we'll see you again for something soon. Bye-bye.